Hey everyone, welcome back. David History for the Ages here. So this has been in the news a bit, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, gerrymandering!" It's like it's never happened. I'm like, folks, this has happened since 1812. So I wanted to give a brief history on the history of gerrymandering and how it works, and just kind of this should be really clear. I've got images, I've got a couple graphs. Just illustrate this, and I think this is great for a middle school kid, all the way to a college kid taking a poli-sci course, all the way to adults. So here we go. So, what is gerrymandering? And I'm going to explain this image you see here. It's actually from a political cartoon when all this unfolded. It's basically the manipulation of boundaries of electoral district to favor one party or one group. So, yeah, I'm assuming you understand there are 435 House seats, right? And according to the Constitution, every 10 years, you have to do a census. And the specific purpose of that census, that's my whole other pet peeve when they do the census, they ask a million questions. All they really need to be asking is how many people live in the household, because the whole point of the census is to determine how many House seats each state should get. And then based on that, you have to draw the district lines. So what would happen, the history is this. So let me move on to my next slide here. Um, Early, before 1812, basically you redistricted every 10 years based on geographical regions, existing counties, and then in 1812, there was a governor, Governor Gerry of Massachusetts, and he decided that he wanted to try to strengthen his Democratic Republican Party to weaken the Federalist Party. And so he started to create this district that looked really funny, and it looked like a salamander. And this is an image you could see again in the newspaper, which inspired this kind of newspaper to mock it as gerrymandering after salamander, because it looks like a salamander, and you can see how it's, this vicious look there. And this is kind of a bit prophetic in terms of this image, because what we've seen now over the decades is that gerrymandering is just constant commonplace. So how do you do it? There's a couple ways it gets done. So before I get that, actually, this is really useful. So I found these two examples. So this chart that I just Googled and found, what would it look like if you don't gerrymandering? And you can see a map of the United States, and you can see the districts looks fairly, stable, and, this isn't perfect in terms of the number of House seats in each seat and everything, but it gives you a visual of what a district would look like. On the right, you see gerrymandering on steroids. This is a real district in Illinois, right? Where they basically wanted to create a way for one particular party to get a House seat. And the way they did this is to create this insane district, as you can see here, that literally just is so random, because they looked at who lives in these streets and how do we get those people to vote as a block to get the person we want in power. So this is how sometimes people say it is a way to rig elections to get specific people in office. And that's the problem with it. You do it a couple ways. You could do it by what we call packing. And what is that? So packing, you put the opposing parties and voters into fewer districts. So for example, imagine that one district is like 70% Democrat, and next door there's a close district. Maybe it's 49% Democrat, 51% Republican. So what you might want to do if you're a Republican is you might try to gerrymander that one Democratic district, just make it 80% Democrat, and they're already going to win that seat. It's 80%, it's 70%. So what's the difference? So you make it 80%. And then by taking those out, then it makes the other district that's 49, 51% more shoe in for the Republicans, as in this example. And of course, you could reverse Democrat and Republican, right? And so what ends up happening, the result of this is one party wastes votes in a landslide while the other wins more districts with smaller margins. And I've got, again, a good graphic of this in a second I'm going to show. So that's packing, right? This is another one is cracking. And so for this example, for example, you split your opposing party group into many districts to dilute their votes. So for example, if you're in a heavy Democratic state, what you might want to try to do through gerrymandering is scatter Republicans over so many districts by creating these funny lines like I showed you in the previous picture, that they never have enough votes to win a seat. And so this is kind of what's going on right now. When you heard about the news in Texas, they're trying to do this to Democrats, but people act like, oh my God, this has never happened before. And I'm sitting here thinking, really? This has happened forever. And then, they got the governor of California saying, well, we're going to do this again. And it's like, you've already done it before. So none of this is new. And I think that's kind of the point of this. So this is another really good image here that kind of is another good visual to show you how this could work, right? So you have, let's say this district, 60% purple, 40% gray. If you divide it, just straight lines, you get 3 purple districts and no gray districts, right? Because it's 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. But through gerrymandering, look what I could do here. I could take the 2 gray districts, make them 6, take just 3 and 3 from the other ones, and all of a sudden in the 2 gray districts just want just 2 gray ones, and the purple has one with 10, right? So this is kind of how gerrymandering might look like if you kind of try to visualize it in a simple block type of way. Again, this is just an image I found on the internet. I thought, oh, this would be good for the presentation I'm doing here. And so will it end? And my answer to that is probably not, considering the Supreme Court said that it won't end. There have been some states who have tried to create kind of commissions to avoid the kind of all the political maneuverings. This actually happened in California to try to limit the amount of gerrymandering. But as the time I'm recording this, now they're making already an effort to reverse that. And so it's just this game. Both parties have played this game forever. Everybody who's like, oh, woe is me. It's been going on since 1812, as I said. And it's just getting worse and worse. I'm personally not a fan of it. I would prefer less kind of political maneuvering like this when you do elections. But, reality is this is how the system works. And so at least I hope this kind of give you a basic overview, understanding of the gerrymandering system. I don't do a lot of U.S. history stuff, but I thought this was kind of interesting, and I thought I'd make this video for you. I have an interesting one on the Electoral College. I'll leave the link here. You may want to watch that. That's another good topic I have for you guys to watch. And leave comments, share your thoughts on this, of course. I'd love to hear what you think. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you for watching.